everyone, and welcome back to Mikey Reacts. I hope you are enjoying the videos that I've been putting out lately. I am Mikey, if this is your first time watching this channel, and today we are going to be reacting to the Revolutionary War in the North animated battle map. You guys obviously know that I love my history, I love my American history, so this really ties into that topic. And I'm really excited. This was recommended by one of my Patreon viewers, so if you want to see more unique and exclusive content, head over to Patreon. You'll find the link down in the description below of this video. You'll also find Twitter and Instagram, and you can also support me by liking this video now and subscribing to the channel. You guys are absolutely amazing, and your support is really means the world to me. So this is about the Revolutionary War, the war in the North. Let's get to it. And if you do want to see my analysis on this, it will be on Patreon for just $5 per month. Right, let's get to this. This is the American Battlefield Trust. Okay, cool. Awesome. Northern Campaign.
April 19th, 1775. 400 British regulars approached the small village of Lexington, Massachusetts. 80 men of the local militia meet them on the town green. "Stand your ground," their commander shouts. "Don't fire unless fired upon. But if they mean to have a war, let it begin here." Two British companies form a line of battle on the Lexington Green. A British officer orders the militia to disperse. Most of the men begin to scatter, but a few stubbornly stand their ground. A moment later, a shot rings out. Who fired that first shot, heard round the world, may never be known. The British then unleash a full volley into the militia. When the smoke clears, 8 Americans lay dead, and another 10 are wounded. These are the first shots in a war that would rage throughout the American colonies and beyond for 8 years. In search of a rumored stockpile of American weapons, the British advance to Concord. Word of the movement spreads among the American patriots. At Concord, the British find only the remnants of the Patriot stockpile. The real weapons are in the hands of the militia. 500 Americans attack the British column near the Concord River. The British withdraw, the Americans pursue, and it devolves into a running battle. More militiamen, sometimes called MINUTEMEN, arrive, using country paths to ambush their exhausted foes. British soldiers are killed or wounded continuously. Most run out of ammunition. Some consider surrendering. The British limp back into Boston, having lost nearly 300 men.
Wow.
Almost miraculously, the American patriots win their first battle. But the revolution has only just begun. Within weeks, Boston is surrounded by an army of New England militia. As news of the victory spreads, other Americans take action. In May, a group of men who call themselves the Green Mountain Boys seize Fort Ticonderoga in upstate New York. In June, the British attack an American position near Boston called Bunker Hill. As the Redcoat battle lines approach, an American commander tells his men not to fire until you see the whites of their eyes.
Yeah.
The British are slaughtered. Although the British capture the hill, American morale rises as British morale plummets. Never before had substantial numbers of armed and organized American colonists faced off against the professional army of the British Empire. Now, patriots portrayed the conflict as citizen soldiers, rallying to defend their property and communities from a foreign invader. Despite these early successes, American leaders know that they will need more than an enthusiastic militia to win the conflict. The Continental Congress, in session in Philadelphia, creates the Continental Army and appoints George Washington, a member of the Virginia delegation, to lead it. Washington rushes to join the army at Cambridge, Massachusetts, telling Congress that he will need heavy artillery to drive the British out of Boston. Washington is aided by 25-year-old Henry Knox, a former Boston bookseller who studied military history in his shop. Married into a prominent Loyalist family, Knox and his wife were sympathizers to the Patriot cause. Impressed by Knox's participation in Bunker Hill, Washington is persuaded to retrieve artillery pieces from upstate New York. Knox spends the winter removing cannons from Fort Ticonderoga and bringing them to Boston. Despite having to sled across frozen rivers and scale snowy mountains, Knox doesn't lose a single gun.
Amazing.
By March of 1776, the American artillery is in place. Unwilling to suffer a bombardment or risk another attack, the British evacuate the city. Washington watches as the fleet sails away. He knows the enemy will soon return, in even greater numbers. The question is where? Washington moves the Continental Army from Boston to New York, anticipating a British attack. By the end of June, 19,000 Patriots have joined him. And then, the British return. 130 ships, carrying more than 32,000 soldiers, sail into New York Harbor. One amazed American exclaims that all of London is afloat. August 22nd, the British, commanded by General William Howe, land on Long Island, sweeping aside the American defenders at the Battle of Brooklyn. Washington skillfully retreats across Manhattan to Harlem Heights. In September, the British land on Lower Manhattan and capture the city, then dislodge the Americans from their defenses on Harlem Heights. Washington retreats again.
Sorry guys, amazing to think the New York that we know now, how built up it is, the concrete jungle, once was plains upon which the Revolutionary War fought. Very interesting.
Between September and November, efforts to retain a foothold near New York fail. The Continental Army is reduced to a few thousand soldiers, while the British make Manhattan Island their headquarters in North America. Washington retreats across New Jersey into Pennsylvania. With morale low and enlistment set to expire, all that is stopping the British is the Delaware River and the coming winter. Convinced the rebels are all but defeated, the British spread out in numerous outposts throughout New Jersey. With the rebel capital of Philadelphia as their next target, the British plan to move when spring arrives. Meanwhile, a second contingent of the Continental Army is busy to the north. Detachments of the Northern Department of the Army have been active in upstate New York since the beginning of the war. In 1775, Americans under the command of General Richard Montgomery make a daring attempt to push British forces out of Canada, hoping to inspire support among the local population. However, the Canadian citizenry are never on board with independence, and support for British authority remains strong. In the winter of 1775, after capturing Montreal, the Americans lay siege to Quebec City. On December 31st, General Montgomery attempts to take the city, but is killed at the Battle of Quebec. In May 1776, the British are reinforced, and the Americans abandon their siege attempt, retreating south to New York. In October, Brigadier General Benedict Arnold fails to thwart the British fleet at the Battle of Valcour Island. Canada remains under British control, and the St. Lawrence River provides the British Army with a means to unload troops and press south into upstate New York.
Okay.
December 1776. Washington must rekindle the confidence of his soldiers while proving to the public the Declaration of Independence is worth fighting for. Knowing the majority of his men's enlistments expire at year's end, the commander-in-chief resorts to his last option: attack the enemy. On Christmas night, 1776, Washington seizes an opportunity. He moves his forces across the ice-choked Delaware River.
Famous painting.
It is a desperate and dangerous maneuver, but it works. His men gather on the opposite bank, and Washington launches a surprise attack on Trenton, New Jersey. The Battle of Trenton is a stirring American victory. Nearly 1,000 Hessians are captured, along with 6 cannons and enough supplies to outfit several American brigades. 6 days later, Washington presses his advantage by recrossing the Delaware and outmaneuvering the main British Army and striking a Crown garrison at Princeton. He wins another victory and captures nearly 200 British regulars. With his army rejuvenated, Washington marches to Morristown and settles in for the rest of the winter. There is almost constant skirmishing between Patriots and British foraging parties. Attempts by General Howe in April at Bound Brook and in June at the Short Hills failed to draw Washington into a major engagement, leaving the British commander no choice but to quit the state by the end of June, forcing the British garrison of New York City to rely on supplies brought by sea.
Which is a long supply chain. Very long supply chain.
In the spring of 1777, the British devise a plan to isolate New England from the other American colonies. 3 columns are ordered to converge on Albany, New York. 1 column is stopped at Fort Stanwix. 1 disregards the plan and instead moves towards Philadelphia. After a British landing at the head of Elk, the Continentals established themselves along the Brandywine Creek, west of Philadelphia, in preparation of the British advance. Washington's battle lines include a vulnerable right flank. General Howe, with General Lord Cornwallis under his command, moves around the flank and attacks, forcing Washington to abandon his battle plan and position a portion of his army to defend against the British assault, biding time for the rest of the Continental Army to retreat. With Washington's defeat, the Continental Congress flees Philadelphia. Howe captures the American capital soon after. Washington attempts to retake the city, but is defeated at the Battle of Germantown. Afterwards, he moves his army to Valley Forge for the winter. The 3rd British column meets heavy resistance in upstate New York from partisan fighters. Battles at Oriskany, Bennington, and Fort Stanwix in the summer of 1777 provide the Americans time to assemble a large force near Saratoga. The fighting at Saratoga rages from September to October. Victory sways in the balance. Finally, the Americans surround the British Army. British General John Burgoyne surrenders to American Major General Horatio Gates. One of the battle's heroes is Major General Benedict Arnold, whose actions later in the war will forever tarnish his name in American history.
Big time.
The main portion of the Continental Army under General Washington suffers through a brutal winter at Valley Forge, but holds together. Discipline actually improves due to the training regimen implemented by Baron von Steuben, a persecuted European officer who lends his expertise to the cause. It's one of the war's greatest displays of American...
Is that perhaps who the character is based on in the movie The Patriot, by any chance? I'm just wondering.
Nation. In the wake of the American victory at Saratoga, France signs a treaty of alliance with the United States and declares war on Britain. This changes the British strategy for ending the rebellion. With Britain's global rival entering into the revolution, the fight for American independence becomes a world war. Threatened by the French fleet, the British abandon Philadelphia. Washington pursues them across New Jersey. American skirmishers harass the British caravan for more than a week. On June 28th, Washington orders Major General Charles Lee to attack the British rear guard at Monmouth, New Jersey. Lee blunders the assault, and Washington is forced to salvage the initiative himself. The battle is inconclusive, and the British continue to New York. With the French fleet lingering off the coast and the failure to isolate the rebellion to New England, the British attempt a southern strategy to win the war.
That didn't work, but I know what's
Suspicions that loyalist support in the South could sway the war in their favor
Nope.
convinces the British to shift its offensive to Savannah, Georgia, and then to Charleston, South Carolina, establishing a foothold in the key port city of the southern colonies. In the north, the British, under the command of Sir Henry Clinton, occupy New York, with Washington maintaining a close presence in the surrounding hills. The American commander-in-chief wants nothing more than to retake the city he'd lost in 1776. The countryside between the armies becomes a no-man's land of spies, foraging parties, and skirmishes. The battles of Newport, Rhode Island, Stony Point, New York, and Springfield, New Jersey produce no clear victory for either side. In the middle of the summer of 1781, Washington receives intelligence that General Cornwallis is bottlenecked along the York River in Virginia. The Marquis de Lafayette and Major General Baron von Steuben are busy clearing out British raiding parties from the Virginian countryside. Cornwallis sets up fortifications at Yorktown, hoping to be reinforced by the British fleet sailing from New York. Seeing his chance, Washington leaves a portion of the army in the north, while he, accompanied by French General Rochambeau's forces, hurries to link up with Lafayette and Steuben. The French fleet soon arrives off the Virginia Capes, waiting to intercept the British fleet. The French win a naval battle over access to the Chesapeake Bay on September 5th, cutting off Cornwallis's supply chain. French and American forces capture key British redoubts to seal their siege lines. Cornwallis is completely surrounded, unable to obtain supplies by land or sea. In October of 1781, the siege of Yorktown proves to be the final domino to fall in London, losing half of her New World colonies. Cornwallis surrenders. News of Yorktown reaches London in late November 1781. In February 1782, the British Parliament adopts a resolution against further prosecution of offensive warfare on the continent of North America. The final treaty of peace is signed in September 1783.
In Paris, yeah.
After 8 years of war, the longest war ever fought in North America, the United States win their independence.
Amazing.
The American Revolution began the most important experiment the world has ever witnessed. Can people govern themselves? Can they treat each other as equals? Can liberty produce power?
Yep.
So far, through many rigorous tests, America has answered yes.
Nice. Wow. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'll give it a more in-depth analysis that you will find on my Patreon, but for the purposes of this video, No, that was, I mean, so there's a lot, sorry guys. So there's a lot there that I knew, and there's also a lot that I wasn't too sure of. So I know of like roughly what happened during the Revolutionary War. I wasn't sure of every single battle. And I mean, that was in the north, and that was really cool. Obviously, Benedict Arnold that they mentioned in there, he did turn out to join the British side, and that's why now his name is universally, well, in the United States, known as sort of a euphemism or a metaphor for a traitor, which is pretty accurate. Actually, interestingly enough, later on in his life, I believe close to his death, on his deathbed, Benedict Arnold did, in fact, say that was one of the biggest regret of his entire life, which, I mean, of course, understandably, because he was banished, or not banished necessarily, but he fled to England afterwards. I think he just really came out on the wrong side of it, and he was not expecting to, more likely than not. That's not really an excuse. But there's a lot that I find interesting about this. I think, you know, when many people think independence, was signed and gained in 1776, that's not necessarily the case. It wasn't until 1783 that everything was signed and peace was actually upon the now United States. That would, of course, become the most powerful country in the world. And I like what the guy said at the end there. It goes, the experiment, can people govern themselves, and can liberty produce power or strength? And it damn sure can. And he does say that in the video. But of course it can, yeah. And we see that from what's happened. And, you know, the patriots of America, of the then colonies, were like one of the first, if not the first group of people, the first nation to really rebel against the British Empire and succeed, which is very impressive considering that at that time the British Empire really was at its height in its strength and its ability. So yeah, the one question I do have is, the relationship now between the UK and the US is amazing, and has really been since the First World War, and before that really. And the question that I would really go to ask is that, why is that, when actually it was the French who really the United States owes its birth to? Not completely, don't take that out of context, of course, but they helped the rebels so much to fight against the British Empire, that actually, of course, with the gift of the Statue of Liberty as well, being a really, really important remembrance of that. Why is it that the connection between the Americans and the French is nowhere near the connection between the Americans and the English? Is it the fact that we really do share common ancestors and beliefs and values? More likely than not, yeah, but that's quite interesting. So guys, this was really, really interesting. This animated battle map, really, really good, by the American Battlefield Trust, which is a really, really good source. I really love the American Battlefield Trust, and they really write some good pieces on their website too. If you guys want to check them out, if there's anything that you want to know about American battles on the continent or even globally, you will find a lot of information there, especially when it comes to the Revolutionary and the Civil War and the War of 1812 also. Really, really cool stuff, guys. This was recommended by a Patreon viewer, so I have to thank him very, very, very much. He's an awesome guy, and he was definitely right on watching this one. I'll leave my in-depth analysis on my Patreon, so if you want to check the link down below and head over for just $5 per month. You won't be paying $5 just to see one video. There's plenty of videos for you and lots of different content. So if you enjoy this kind of stuff, head over there. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. You guys are absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to see you on the very next one, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.